Alright, so The Flash feels like somewhat of a celebration of DC's long and rich history on the big and small screen.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
The movie of course brings back both Zod and Michael Keaton's Batman, but beyond that there's also a number of different cameos that call back to times gone by. Throughout this video, we're gonna be going through them all and explaining what happened with some of the characters and the actors attached to them. Heavy spoilers ahead, so if you haven't had a chance to check out the film, then I highly recommend that you check out now. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe for breakdowns like this every day. With that out of the way, huge thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into The Flash.
You're strapped to your parachutes.
Hey, where's yours?
Now the film brings back the Justice League for its opening scene, and when Barry tries to reform the team in 2013, he runs into some snags. Due to when this is set, they haven't been formed yet, but we do get a nod to members of the group and what they're up to at the time. Ray Fisher's Victor Stone is shown to still be playing college football, and we of course saw clips of this in Zack Snyder's Justice League. As we learn in the film, some things in the past are changed though, and this includes Jason Momoa's Aquaman Arthur Curry. In this timeline, his dad never met Atlanta, and thus Aquaman never got to be born. The dog from the movie returns though, with it being called Arthur, and we get Tamura Morrison once more playing his father. Faora of course returns with Zod alongside the Kryptonian giant, and we also get a glimpse at Jai Courtney in the Chrono Bowl. Suicide Squad showed the Flash was the one who captured him, and this is obviously a clear reference to that scene from the opening of that movie. Now the film actually features several different cameos from Superman actors from over the years. Henry Cavill's version's referenced on a news report, and he appears in CGI during the Jai Courtney scene. In addition to this, the Chrono Bowl scene's filled with quite a lot of them, and for the next part of the video, I want to discuss these in depth. One of these is George Reeves, who appears in black and white like his classic TV show. Starring in the adventures of Superman, this ran from 1952 all the way up to 1956. Initially reluctant to take the role, Reeves worried that not many people would see his work due to it being on television, but the show was a big success at the time of its release. Now, if you've ever seen the movie Unbreakable, then you might remember the scene in which David Dunn's son Joseph points a gun at his dad because he believes that the bullets are just gonna bounce off him. This is something that was actually inspired by a real life story involving Reeves, who at a convention had a gun pulled on him by a kid. Like Dunn in the movie, Reeves managed to talk him out of it, and he did this by saying that he was right and that the bullets would just bounce off him. However, they would go on to then hit others in the crowd, and innocents would be hurt, so just put the gun down, kid. Now Reeves made a major name for himself, but this also came with more downsides, as after its end he was unable to find other work. The only roles Reeves ever got offered were playing Supes, and at the age of 45, he felt like he was getting too old to do the whole capes and tights thing. Feeling like a failure, he descended into depression, and he ended up dying during a party which was being held at his home. Filled with Hollywood hotshots at the time, Reeves ended up going upstairs looking depressed, and one onlooker even remarked that he looked like he was going to shoot himself, which eerily came true. After hearing a gunshot, this person apparently said, "I told you so," and Reeves was sadly found dead in his bedroom with no note being left. Since then, there have been conspiracy theories around his passing, with his mysterious death being at the center of several documentaries going over whether it was as simple as it seemed. Nothing's ever been proved conclusively, and it's a sad legacy for the actor, which is of course mirrored in Christopher Reeve, who too appears in the film. Still sitting up top as my favourite Superman, I actually rewatched all of his movies recently due to the 4K Special Edition Steelbook set that just got released. The guy just has something about him, and I must admit I tear up at the end when I see him smiling as he flies off from the camera. Gonna be honest, seeing some of these made me feel a bit weird in the cinema because of how poorly the CGI had been done on them, and I feel like this is gonna be the prime example. I know the term PS2 graphics gets bandied around a lot, but I think when you're doing digital necromancy that you need to make sure it's flawless, as it can come across like you're using a dead guy just to get your movie cameo points. I think Harold Ramis was a great example of how to do it right, and not only did they clearly put a lot of money into making sure it looked real, but they also built the film up as a tribute to him. I've seen this Christopher Reeves thing being described as a CGI puppet, and when Brandon Routh canonically is the same character, then there are other ways to tastefully go about it. Anyway, I don't want to bog the whole video down, as this is just kind of going over who appears in the movie. However, I do think it's worth discussing, so if you agree or disagree, then let me know below. Now, as I'm sure many of you know, Reeve ended up falling from his horse in 1995, which sadly left him paralysed from the neck down. Having difficulty moving and breathing, this didn't stop him though, and Reeve became a voice that spoke out in favour of stem cell research and trying to aid people with disabilities. Sadly, he passed away in 2004 after slipping into a coma, but the actor is still remembered fondly almost 20 years later due to all the incredible work he did. Now, one person that you might also be surprised to see playing Superman is, who is he?
You're Nick fucking... Cage!
Yep, that's right. Nicolas Cage actually pops up in the film as an alternate version of Superman that has a pretty wild backstory to it. In case you don't know, Tim Burton actually got asked to revive the character after his success on the first two Batman films, and Superman Lives was then put into production. It had a tumultuous time, I don't know why I use that, had a tumultuous time in production, and this was all documented in the incredible film, The Death of Superman Lives.
They just wanted us to go crazy. They just said, just draw monsters. Now when you think about it, if somebody was like, would you like to see a Nic Cage Superman movie? I'd be like, and yes, take all my money because I want to see what that looks like.
This recounts all the original plans they had, stories of what was going on in the script, and some hilarious moments where Kevin Smith talks about how mental some of the ideas around the film were. At the center of it was Cage, and they spent months alone just building his suit. This was supposed to be thriving with electricity, and it looks pretty cool when you see the behind the scenes stuff. Now, in case you don't know, Nicolas Cage is actually a mega Superman fan, and Cage actually named his son Kal-El. Yep, not lying, and because of this, I always felt kind of bad that the chance to play his dream role was taken away from him. He got so close to it, however it never materialized, so to me, it's really nice for him to at least get some acknowledgement with this scene, and I was happy to see him here. Now, beyond there being all these several Superman connections, we also get one referencing Supergirl. With Sasha Calle being a major part of the film, we of course have to have a nod to one of her previous live-action versions, and we get this in the form of Helen Slater.
And introducing Helen Slater as Supergirl. Adventure runs in the family.
All the way back in 1984, Slater played Supergirl, which was supposed to tie in with the Christopher Reeve verse. However, his initially slated cameo was scrapped because he probably read the script, and what we got was a news report saying that he'd left Earth on a peacekeeping mission. This explained why he wasn't in the movie, and the film itself has kind of been brushed to the side, to the point that it's not really brought up all that much. She actually appears in the same scene alongside Reeves, showing that their iterations did eventually meet up and join forces. Now, one thing that is still in the pop culture zeitgeist, though, is the CW's version of The Flash. Unfortunately, Grant Gustin doesn't show up in the film, which I felt was kind of a disservice, as the guy's put in so many years as the character. Grant has played him since 2014, and though his and Ezra's version meant Crisis, it would have been nice to see him come in here. However, who we get is Teddy Sears, and he's playing none other than Jay Garrick. Jay Garrick was the original Flash in the comics, and they had Teddy playing this Golden Age character in the CW series. Now, not to get too spoilery on what happens in The Flash, but yeah, this cameo leaked, and in the build-up to it, I was hoping there'd be a little joke about how it seemed like he was a nice guy. Honestly, I kind of feel like John Wesley Shipp should have been in the role instead, as he played Jay Garrick in The Flash show, and was also a version of Barry Allen in the 90s TV series. I read on Twitter, so take this with a pinch of salt, but I read that someone just googled Jay Garrick CW to insert the quick cameo here, and that they put him in instead of Wesley Shipp, which could be the case. Now, it might also be the fact that they don't want people to have things ruined, as there is a big twist involving them, which I have just spoiled to be fair, but hey, the channel's called Heavy Spoilers. Now, either way, Jay really set the groundwork for Barry, and there's been multiple different characters who've taken over the mantle, including Wally West. On top, along with Michael Keaton's Batman, we also get some other iterations of The Dark Knight, and this includes Adam West's version. Adam West is the one that I think a lot of people my age grew up on, because though we had the Keaton version, parents might not have let their kids watch it. I was fine, because my parents just let me watch things like The Thing when I was 4 years old, but I know a lot had to resort to just watching reruns of Adam West and Burt Ward's Robin. It was of course camp and over the top, but at the time, a lot of us young kids didn't really get that it was supposed to be a joke, and I took everything deadly fucking serious. Now, what normally happens with a lot of Batman takes is that the actors are popular when they're in the role, then they drop out, a new one comes in, and everyone says they're so much better, and that older actor gets hated on. This happened when Keaton took over West, when Bale took over from Clooney, and so on and so forth. All the audiences eventually come back around on these guys though, and normally a couple of decades later, they get given their flowers. This happened in the case of West too, with a lot of people now celebrating his campy comedic version.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
The internet has really allowed aspects of that show to become a meme, and since then they made comic book runs of Batman 66, along with a lot of animated movies. We of course also have Ben Affleck appearing in the film, and it's nice that there's all these versions of Batman showing up in the movie. Now that takes us into the major cameo that comes at the end of the film, and the person I'm talking about is George Clooney. The film ends with Barry travelling into his universe, and I think he's had a sort of revival too when it comes to how fans feel about him. Sure, Batman and Robin was shit, but I think a lot of people can now just view that as being a camp comedy that you don't have to take too seriously. I have done a full breakdown on the scene as well and what it could mean for the future, which I will link at the end of the video in case you want to check it out. Anyway, some miscellaneous appearances by other actors are Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and she appears at the start of the movie. Jason Momoa's Aquaman also drops in for the post-credits scene, and you also have Andy Muschietti showing up at one point in the film. Lastly is also Nicolaj Coster-Waldau, who in the end is in a pretty non-consequential role. His appearance actually leaked a couple of years back, and people wrongly assumed that he'd play the Reverse Flash in the film. However, that was a fucking lie, and I think that it was just brought in because the pair worked together on the film Mama. Anyway, that's all the cameos I could spot in the movie that have meaning to them, and I hope you've enjoyed going through this breakdown. Obviously, there are some things to talk about beyond just the people who pop up as well, so if you have your thoughts on bringing dead actors back to life and whether this was done tastefully or not, then comment down below. If you want to support the channel for as little as 99 cents a month, then please click the join button below, and as a thank you, you'll get early access to videos every week. We also have our merch store over at zeroedition.com, and this sells lots of nerdy inspired t-shirts, hats and more. We just launched a Secret Invasion / Pulp Fiction inspired t-shirt, so if you want to head over there after this and help us out, then the link's in the description. Now if you want something else to watch, we've got that video on screen right now, going over what happens at the end of the movie. Huge thank you for sitting until the end of the breakdown. I've been your host Paul as always, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your bloody brilliant week. Out of the way, thanks for clicking this, you take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Peace.